Hello and welcome back to the Complete Web Dev series. We are in a new chapter here. This is the second lesson and we are talking about object-oriented programming. Now in this video what we're going to do is talk about the difference between an object and a class, and we're actually going to show you the difference of that. We're going to talk about it and then we're going to actually start to code something out just to show you real quickly what difference is between that. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to switch over to my screen here. Also, if you are liking this series, please comment, like, subscribe, and let me know what you think. Alright, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and make sure that our server is up and running. So make sure we're using XAMPP here. So just make sure you have XAMPP up. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. And mine is already running. So now let's go ahead and create a new project. So we're going to cd to our htdocs, directory. So for me, that's opt lamp htdocs. And here we go. So we're here, and I'm going to just create a new folder here. So we use make dir for make directory, and I'm just going to call this OOP. All right. Once I've done that, I'm going to cd into OOP. All right, and then what we'll do here is let's go ahead and just create let's create a file in here, and we're just going to call this file index.php. All right, so now let's go to VS Code or whatever editor you want to use here, and let's open that folder. So I'm going to go to htdocs and we'll just click on OOP. And this will open that new folder up. So here's my index.php. So we have an empty PHP file here. And let's go ahead and go to the browser and go to localhost OOP. And here we go. We have just a blank screen. So we are good to go there. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what is and you know what, I'll switch back over to my camera just for a second. So what is the difference between an object and a class? Well, all analogies that I can use will break down, but I think a great analogy for this would be a building and a blueprint. So basically, a class, you could think of a class as much like a blueprint. You get blueprints, and on the blueprints you have your floor plan laid out for your building or your house, and within that blueprint you also have the electrical diagrams, you have the plumbing, you have the HVAC, you have everything that you need to build the house in these floor plans. Okay, so you can think of the class itself as the floor plan. It's the instructions that we're going to use to create a house or a building. Okay, now the building itself, once it's been built, that is the object. And now this object has all the traits of the blueprint, but the object isn't the blueprint. I can use the blueprints to create multiple buildings of the same type or whatever, but those buildings are not the blueprints, and the blueprints are not the buildings. The buildings themselves are the object. Okay, so just kind of think of it like that. So we'll talk more about that, but I just wanted to kind of just give that analogy before we get going. So let's talk about what is what even is an object. You know, I talked a little bit before in the last video about how you could package properties and functionality up into one object, but basically an object is well, you know what, let's just make an object. I think it'd be easier just to kind of show you as we go here. So I'm going to flip over here to index.php, and let's just create a very simple object, and I'm going to create an object. We'll open our PHP tags. We're not going to close our PHP tags in this instance. When you're doing objects or class-based things in PHP, you rarely close them because that can cause some issues. So just trust me on that. Just open them. But to create a class, now this is the blueprints I was talking about. We're just going to type the word class, and then we're going to open and close some curly braces. Now this whole class with the curly braces here, this is going, whatever is in here is going to be the basically going to be the blueprints that we build it out. So we need to give it a name. So let's just call this blueprints. Okay. So we have a class called blueprints, and all the instructions that we have for this are going to be in here now. One thing we can do is we can have what's known as properties. So for now, I'm not going to talk about this, but let's just add some properties. And we do that just by typing the word public, and then we use the $sign, and this is just like setting up a variable. You could think of properties as variables that are associated with an object. So let's do length, let's do width, okay, and then let's do another one called color, and let's do another one called let's do another one called name. Or you know what, all these will have to have an address, so let's do that. So these right here are called properties. These are properties of the blueprint, and they will be properties of the object that can be set in that object and packaged up together. Okay, so in the class blueprints here we have properties. Okay, we can also have methods. Now methods you could think of as functions, and to create a function or a method, I'm just going to type the word public, and we'll talk more about what public means later, but then we just create it the same way with like the word function, and then we're going to give it a name. So let's do square foot. Okay, and square foot is just going to return the width times the height. Now we're not going to, don't worry about this right now, but we have to use this as a keyword, and we're going to say this width times this height. Oh, not height, I called it length. This length. So length times width is going to be the square foot. Okay, so we have this right here is a class. So what is an object? Well, an object, I didn't want to get too deep into this, so don't worry about too much about this, but I need to create a constructor. So I'm going to do public function, and I'm going to do underscore construct, and this is going to take a length, it'll take a width, color, and an address. I'm going to open and close that, and then all we're going to do is say this length is equal to length, this width is equal to width, this color is equal to color, and so on and so forth. This address is equal to address. Now, I know that none of this is going to make sense yet. So if you're confused, don't worry. I'm just kind of showing you the basics that I need to do to create. So this right here, remember, is our blueprint. Okay, so we have these open and closing brackets here. Now, I'm going to create an object, and to create an object, I'm going to say building one. You know what? Let's just call this house. House is going to be equal a new blueprint, and then the house, let's do 30 feet by 50 feet for, well, let's do 50 for the length, 30 for the width. We'll reverse that. I was right the first time. It doesn't really matter. And then we'll do for the color, I'm going to do a string of 10, and we'll do an address of 123 Main Street. Okay. Now this house right here, this is just like building. So this new keyword right here, and then the blueprints, this builds a new object from our class right here. And so what we can do is let's create another one. Let's call this one let's call this a store, and we'll do new blueprints. And the store is going to be much larger. So let's do, the store is 150 foot wide, and it's going to be 250 foot the width. So 150 foot in length and 250 foot wide. And we'll make this thing brown. And the address is going to be 45 Patriot Way. All right. So now we have two objects. Now they both were built from the blueprints above, okay? But we have two separate objects here. And so let me go ahead and just show you what I mean now. If I echo house color, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to echo a break tag here. And then I'm going to echo store color and save that and go back to our browser here and refresh. You can see that the first one echoes tan, and the next one echoes brown. So if you look in the blueprints, these have a color, and these two objects, when I created them, had different colors. And so now this house is packaged up, and it has its own length, width, color, and address associated with it, and that's separate from the store. Now the store is a whole nother object, and in fact, you know what we could do? Let's use our function now. So now we created a function in here called square footage, and I want to print out how many square foot this is. So let's change this a little bit. Let's do this. Let's do echo the building is, and then we'll concatenate on. You know what, I don't want to get too crazy here. Let's echo the house, and we're going to run that function or method within there called square foot, and we just run it by adding the parentheses right here. And that will, let's see what happens now. So if I just save that and echo, you can see that it's 1500. But if I change this house to store and save it, now that is 37,500 square foot. So you can see that these functions within here are taking their own width and their own height and timesing them together and returning that. So this is what I mean by packaging up properties and methods or functions within one object. So now these houses they both have this function of square foot, so you can run that on either one of these, and they all have the same properties. They have the length, width, color, and address. Okay, so that is the difference. I just don't worry too much about properties and methods. We're going to talk more about that in another video, but I wanted to show you the difference. The main thing I want you to understand is that this is a class. It's like blueprints. The object is what you build from the blueprints, okay? And then those are distinct, separate things that you can use later in your application that have all the properties of the blueprints they were built from. So I hope that makes sense. If you're too confused, try to watch it again. But if you kind of get it, then you're good to move on. Don't worry about it too much. I will see you in the next video.